This whole idea that Trump tweets out over the weekend about Antifa, he wants to call them a terrorist group. By the way, for the record, ladies and gentlemen, where has the White House been over the weekend? Where has our leader been? This is at a time and a place in our history of this country where we need leadership. Where has President Trump been? Joe Biden's been all over the place. Where's the president been? That would be my first question. He's talking about Antifa on Twitter. He certainly has time to tweet, but not address the nation. Well, guess what? Trump can declare a foreign group a terror group, can't declare a domestic group. That is what the law says. So the president clearly does not understand what the law says, okay? You also cannot prosecute a group. You have to prosecute people individually. Once again, it's another situation where Donald Trump doesn't understand the law in this country.
Well, it's, Brian, in my opinion on it is he's throwing red meat to the base.
That's exactly what he's doing. He cares more about talking about throwing, as you said, red meat to his base and going after Antifa than actually addressing the systemic racism in this country for hundreds of years. Now, I'll tell you something. Do you remember when Donald Trump talked about how he would pay for people's legal fees and basically condoned violence? I want you to listen to this audio, and then I'll explain while I'm playing it right after. Here it is.
So I got a little notice, in case you see, the security guys. We have wonderful security guys. They said, Mr. Trump, there may be somebody with tomatoes in the audience. So if you see somebody getting ready to throw a tomato, knock the crap out of them, would you? Seriously. Okay? Just knock the hell. I promise you, I will pay for the legal fees. I promise. I promise.
All right, so
there won't be so much because the courts agree with us too. What's going?
So make no mistake about it. You can make excuses for the president all you want. He was condoning violence there. That's exactly what he was doing. Don't give me this crap. Well, here's what I think he was trying to say. He was just having fun with the audience. He was condoning violence. Period. Disgusting, and it's wrong. And now I think Colin Kaepernick has something in common with Donald Trump because, in a way, Colin Kaepernick is doing the exact same thing. If you're living under a rock and you don't know who Colin Kaepernick is, first of all, don't pick up the rock and throw it at police, number one. Number two, if you're living under that rock, Colin Kaepernick is the guy, the former football NFL quarterback who took a knee and started that whole taking the knee controversy that, well, some people call it a controversy. So this is what Colin Kaepernick is doing now on social media. To me, this shows you Colin Kaepernick's stupidity. So he's teaming up with his nonprofit Know Your Rights camp, and they do a lot of good things. That's not what's stupid here. He is now saying that in solidarity with the brothers and sisters in Minneapolis, Colin Kaepernick is establishing our legal defense initiative to support freedom fighters on the ground. If you or a loved one needs legal assistance, donate. And then he gives the donate stuff. Here is what is so ignorant and stupid about that. Let's just say you're one of those businesses that gets your business burned to a crisp. Let's just say you're one of those businesses. Or let's just say you're an officer that got a rock thrown at his face and now you're in the hospital. Colin Kaepernick is saying he is going to pay for those people's legal fees. So make no mistake about it. Colin Kaepernick, in a way, is also condoning violence. How, you say? I just mentioned it. Kaepernick is literally saying, if you break the law, if you riot, if you loot, if you break into a store and you steal things, I'm going to pay your legal fees. Now, for the minorities out there that look up to Colin Kaepernick, for those out there that think Colin Kaepernick is some sort of hero, I beg to differ. I think he's the opposite of that. I think he's extremely ignorant. And I don't really want to get into this, but I can give you so many different reasons. Wearing a Fidel Castro shirt, wearing pig socks, not talking to politicians and law enforcement officials, throwing a little money at the issue and dropping down and taking a knee is not going to change policy in this country. And it hasn't. How has that worked out for you guys? How has it worked out for the minorities throughout the country? What has Colin Kaepernick done besides raise awareness? If you're one of those people that was not aware that there was systemic racism in society, and then all of a sudden Colin Kaepernick took the knee and you said, oh my God, Colin Kaepernick's right. Minorities are being treated unfairly, then you're an idiot if it took that. You're just a dope. But that's beside the point. How can anybody defend what Colin Kaepernick is doing? How? Now, what would you say as a minority if, I don't know, somebody on the right, say Kurt Schilling, said, you know what, I'm going to raise funds to help police officers that are unjustly arrested. How would you feel about that? How would you feel if you owned a local business anywhere in the country and you had a dozen people go into your business, steal everything you had in there, ransack your business, only to find out that they were released from prison because Colin Kaepernick paid the bill, or his nonprofit organization paid the bill so that those criminals were able to get let loose again and maybe do some more carnage with some other businesses? How would you feel about that? How can anybody, and I mean anybody, defend Colin Kaepernick when it comes to this issue? Now, listen, if you want to defend him and you disagree with me and you think what he's done is fantastic and raising awareness, separate subject. If you think him taking a knee is a great thing, fine, no problem. You can have that discussion. It's a matter of opinion. I would disagree with you, but it's a matter of opinion. That's fine. I don't have any issues with that. It's very simple. What I have an issue with is anybody. It could be Colin Kaepernick, anybody. Anybody's defending the rioters and the looters. And in this case, it's more than just defending. It's literally paying for their defense, paying for their legal defense. So what I would ask Colin Kaepernick is, if you don't think it's okay to burn down businesses and you don't condone violence, why are you paying for their legal fees? Can't your money be put forth to maybe the Floyd family, or maybe to those racial injustices that have suffered, or maybe those that you think are in jail for nonviolent crimes that deserve to be let free? Don't you think your money could be well spent in other categories? Is there anybody out there that could defend Colin Kaepernick when it comes to this stuff? This pisses me off. You want to call yourself a champion for, rights for minorities, but yet you're saying, go ahead and burn down a business. I'll pay for your legal fees. This is what you want to all the African Americans out there. Is this the poster child that you want for your cause? I'll pay your legal fees. If you go into a shop, a mom and papa shop that has been in business for 30 or 40 years that are good people, and you go in there and you loot and you steal everything and you burn down their business, no problem. I'm Colin Kaepernick. I'll pay for your legal fees. It's no better than what Donald Trump did. It's no better. In fact, it's the exact same thing. It's the exact same thing. Because you're defending violence. And you're giving those people an avenue. Oh, I can go into a store and I can do this because Colin Kaepernick's got my back. It's the same thing Donald Trump did. I can go into a Donald Trump rally, and if I see a liberal or a Democrat throwing a tomato, I can attack them because Donald Trump has my back. It's disgusting. And they should both be called out. And this has nothing to do with taking a knee. This has nothing to do with the actual subject that we are talking about, which is police brutality and what minorities have to face every day. It's about a football player who is an idiot, a former football player, who is deciding to defend criminals. I'll tell you what you should do, Colin Kaepernick. Why don't you put money up for some of those people who have lost their business? Why don't you decide to defend them? But no, Colin Kaepernick won't do that. There are plenty of African Americans that own businesses throughout the country, and their businesses have been ruined. So again, I say to Colin Kaepernick, why don't you put up a fund for them, not the criminals? I want to take some phone calls. Let me give out the number, 702-257-5396. Again, that number to call if you want to be a part of this program. That number is 702-257-5396. And I just want to pose this question to the listeners out there. Am I wrong on this? Donald Trump and Colin Kaepernick now have this in common, and it ain't good, folks. It ain't good. It's not athletic ability, okay? It's not that. It's not how good they are on the golf course. They are both condoning and saying it's okay to be violent. Donald Trump did it at his rally. He said he'd pay the legal fees to rough people up. It's wrong. I don't care whether you're a Republican or a Democrat. And what Colin Kaepernick is doing is wrong. I don't care what the color of your skin is. What Colin Kaepernick is doing is flat out wrong. I'm going to pay for their legal fees. You can burn up a building. You can loot. And I'm going to pay for your legal defense. It's absolutely disgusting. 702-257-5396.
Yeah, and a lot of businesses that were destroyed in Atlanta were minority owned. A lot of businesses destroyed in Minneapolis were minority owned.
That's my point.
And then it was kind of funny. There was a celebrity. It was a basketball player. I think his name was Chris Palmer. But they were just 189 person low income housing unit was being destroyed in Minneapolis, and he was advocating, hey, burn that down. But then a couple days later, when the protest got to Beverly Hills, which is where he lives, he was like, no, you don't come in, take a protest somewhere else. It's almost like during this process, it's okay to destroy these communities that have minority-owned businesses.
Listen,
and that
the
have low-income
majority of
housing.
people aren't saying that. It's Colin Kaepernick that I'm talking about.
Colin Kaepernick's calling for revolution, though.
Well, he's just an idiot.
And a lot of people are.
Well, he's an idiot.
Because
would you agree with me, though?
Of course, but what the events of this last weekend have kind of proved is that there is a legitimate uprising in the United States of people that are extremely entitled and want things given to them.
I understand.
And want to take things from other people.
But this is important.
Hard-earned things that they have earned.
But this is
in the name of basically communism or socialism.
But this is important, and I want to ask you this.
And that's why this looting took place, and that's why so many people are behind it. And I'm tired of Fox and CNN at midnight or 11 or 10 calling these protests. Those aren't protests. The 10 p.m., the 11 p.m., the midnight, the 1 a.m., the 2 a.m.
Well,
those are that is looting and rioting, and that is spreading the wrong message.
I understand. I want to stay on this topic, though, when it comes to Colin Kaepernick, but I want to ask you this question. I think it's very important. I've called out Colin Kaepernick. There are a lot of Democrats out there that support Colin Kaepernick to end, and they won't say one negative thing about him. Can we agree that what Colin Kaepernick is doing and what Donald Trump did, we played the audio. I don't know if you heard it. We played the audio of saying, if you rough blah, blah, blah up, I will pay your legal fees. They are hand-in-hand condoning violence. Can we both agree on that?
Again, I didn't hear the audio, Brian.
702-257-5396 is the number to call. Let's go to Aaron. Is it Aaron that's first up? Aaron. Go ahead, Aaron. What's on your mind?
Hey, what's up, Aaron?
Hey, I actually made it out to one of the protests over the weekend where it was on the Las Vegas Strip in front of the Miracle Mile. And it was actually a very beautiful, diverse, and peaceful event. I was there from 2 p.m. to about 5 p.m., handing out ice cold water, recording everybody's signs, giving them high fives. And it was a whole lot of love. And I just really want to stress how diverse it was that day. I wasn't there for any of the badness that may have happened at the end of the night. But by the beginning of the day, it was one of the most beautiful displays that I've ever seen.
Well, I'm glad you're describing that, Aaron, because, first of all, this is not Minneapolis. From what I've heard, there have been a lot of peaceful protests here in Las Vegas. Yes, there were a couple businesses that were destroyed. Yes, there were some bad actors. There's no question the majority of the people that have been protesting in Las Vegas are good people that just want their voices heard. But if you listen to some people on the right in this state on social media, they'll lead you to believe that this wasn't about this wasn't about Floyd at all. They're all a bunch of looters, but that's not the case. You were there. These people were not there. I was there, and I'm glad you saw that.
Yeah, it was great, and the narrative is definitely getting changed. You're right. This is in Minneapolis. So this is Las Vegas, and I think that we came together strong for several different large-scale events like this. And this one right here, I was my first time ever personally being involved with. And it definitely won't be the last. And it was beautiful. Black, white, Asian, Latino. Everybody was there in United for George Floyd. And I think a lot of people learned something that morning, that afternoon.
I hope so. Aaron, you know what gives me goosebumps? Not just what you're saying, but you did see this, I'm sure. There were police officers, not just in Las Vegas, but throughout the country in certain areas that were actually protesting with the protesters. They were walking with the protesters. There were some police officers that were kneeling. There are some good people out there, cops and protesters, that were able to speak respectfully to one another. I think those are really important stories that we need to cover.
Amen. Amen.
Aaron,
absolutely. I've seen it as well.
Absolutely. Aaron, I appreciate you calling in, man, and sharing your story. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for calling, Aaron.
Yeah, and thank you for being one of those peaceful protesters. We appreciate you for doing that. 702-257-5396. Let's go to Miles. Miles, you're next up on the Vegas Take. What's up?
Hey, what's up, Miles?
Hey, thanks for taking my call. Appreciate you guys. Listen to you all the time.
Thank you.
Hey, so I got a couple of comments. First comment is I was watching the news and I noticed that the protesters that were meeting at Mandalay Bay had met with a couple of Metro platoons that were walking side by side with them. And in the news conference, it basically looked like the two sergeants talking with the protest leader. And at the end, it sounded like maybe they were giving some sort of parameters. If you want to peacefully protest, we're here. We're walking with you side by side. We're here to protect you. And they fist bumped each other at the end of the conversation. And it was peaceful. And then it turned violent towards the end. But again, showing how Metro has done a wonderful job when it comes to trying to bridge that gap and then reaching out to different minority leaders within the police department for years to try to change the culture.
Sure. What you just said,
can't-
Miles, is so important, right? And I'm sure you'll agree with me. We need more, and I'm not just talking about Las Vegas, and I agree with what you said about Metro here. They have handled it very well. It's not just Las Vegas. I think what we need is, besides, laws to change and the body cameras, and we can talk about all that, what we need is police officers to get out in the community, to have conversations with those that live in this community, those minorities, those leaders, and to have those types of conversations. Officers need to do more of that. It's so important to have those types of relationships, to be out there in the neighborhoods, to start conversations, not to go up to someone and say, hey, let me see your ID. I think you're jaywalking, but to just say, hey, how you doing? Where do you live in this town? What do you think about the crime here? What do you think we can do that's better? Or I don't care. Talk about the Raiders. Just have a conversation with somebody and develop that sort of relationship.
But I don't think you can't say that police officers nationwide didn't show unbelievable restraint the last 3 days. I don't think there's been one situation where a protester or a rioter or a looter has been killed by a police officer. There's probably been a few million of those across the country. And you can look at me all you want like that, but that's reality, Brian.
Okay, so,
I mean, police officers, while their cities were being literally destroyed, no one was killed. I think that police officers have done an amazing job since this started of showing that even under very stressful situations or crisis situations that they can show restraint.
But I was talking about the relationship between
I
police
understand what you're talking
officers
about,
and
Brian.
people in general. I wasn't talking about or celebrating the fact that no one's been killed in these protests. And by the way, I will also add, and here's where I disagree with you, just because nobody has been killed doesn't mean there hasn't been situations where police officers have assaulted people. It happened in New York, where a rookie cop assaulted someone for no reason. It's on video. He has since been fired, and there are two officers in Atlanta that I mentioned that tased an individual in a car that did not pose a threat to officers. Two officers have been fired
Okay,
there.
so 3 officers out of every single police force in every major city in the entire country, Brian.
3 police
and
officers.
you're saying 3 is too many under a situation where the entire city is basically under siege?
No,
and
that's
being
not what I'm saying.
Well,
Here's what I'm
are
saying.
you sure?
Well, I'll answer your question
Okay.
if you'd like. So 3 officers, a couple situations that were on tape, that were filmed by protesters.
So you're assuming there's a lot more.
I would assume that there are some police officers out there that are not behaving, and for any of those police officers that are misbehaving, I mean, I don't know why you laugh at these situations.
Because
it's a serious situation. What is funny about
the only people that are misbehaving are those that are breaking into businesses that they don't own.
Only people
that are destroying businesses.
What do you mean
that
the
are,
only people?
That
Why are we even here in the first
that
place?
are burning down? I'm saying at this particular moment, obviously, Officer Chauvin has been charged with third-degree
the other
murder.
3 officers have not.
That is done.
Right, so
That was 3 days ago,
All right, so
Brian. And since then,
so here's my problem
all this
with what
has
you're saying.
gotten worse. All this has gotten more aggressive.
so
All this
here's-
looting
okay.
and rioting and the destruction of businesses
So here's my
has just
problem.
gotten more apparent.
Okay, so here's
which means that it wasn't really about George Floyd in the first place for a lot of these people.
Absurd.
Not for all of them,
Absurd.
but for a lot of these people. And I'm not saying those. Again, I advocate peaceful protesting completely. I have no issue with that whatsoever. Now, am I a huge fan of when the protest is literally blocking off all traffic and people can't live their lives? No. I'm not a big fan of when it's on the freeway. I'm not a big fan of when you're sitting at us like what happened in Salt Lake City, where there was protesters at a stoplight and people were driving to go place. I'm not a fan of that. But, Brian, you can't deny that officers have not done an unbelievable job of restraining themselves while watching their cities literally be burnt, looted, and destroyed.
Okay, first of all, the majority of the
And you can talk about how
let me know when I can
Okay,
respond.
fine.
Thank you.
Respond.
The majority of the protesters are not doing that. I don't know what
And
you
I'm
mean
not-
by-
I'm not saying they
If
are.
I can just finish. The majority of the protesters are not acting in that way, number one. Number two, the idea that your defense is, well, this officer has been charged, so everything is okay now, is absurd.
I didn't say
I could just finish.
I didn't say everything was okay, Brian.
If I could just finish, okay? There are people that are angry, they're upset, and just because a police officer has been charged does not mean it takes away the hundreds and hundreds of years of oppression and the way that minorities have been treated.
And that doesn't mean that you can loot and destroy a business that isn't yours.
If I can finish.
That doesn't mean that you can attack someone who is in their business and then expect them not to defend themselves.
You got to let me finish. I was getting to that. You got to let me finish. Okay, I lost my train of thought. But what I was going to say is it is not a defense for people that break the law. Sure, absolutely. But to say that the only people that have been misbehaving here are the rioters and the looters is just simply not factually accurate. One of the main reasons why we got to this point is because across the country,
I'm saying in the last
interrupting me again.
because you're taking what I said out of context. In the last 72 hours, the only people I'm not obviously peaceful protesters have done an outstanding job, and a lot of police officers have actually been involved in those, like what happened in New Jersey, and that's great. I'm talking about the looting, the rioting, and the destruction of property. Those people have been misbehaving. And police officers and the National Guard have shown unbelievable restraint considering those circumstances.
But that had absolutely.
For example, the St. John's Church has been destroyed across from the White House. The Washington Memorial was a lot of historical landmarks. The College Football Hall of Fame in Atlanta, Georgia, was vandalized and looted. A lot of historical places in the United States are destroyed because there are people in the United States that want to watch this country burn. There are people that are very, very lazy and entitled, and they want the things that other people that for example, why do you think there was looting, or why do you think there was a protest in Beverly Hills on Rodeo Drive? Because there's extremely valuable things there. You could break in there, steal something, and sell it, and then enrich yourself.
All right,
this George Floyd's death has been turned into this tragedy has been exploited and parlayed into an opportunity for personal satisfaction for destroying other people's property, as well as personal enrichment by taking other people's property. And I am amazed on how good of a job police officers across the country have done in handling that, considering that they know that for a fact.
Okay, so I have no idea what that has to do with what I was talking about 2 minutes ago. I don't know why we got into that. What I was talking about was how I believe the relationship between police officers and minorities need to change, and what that needs to do to help these police officers and these minorities have these types of discussions. I don't know what that has to do with the rioting and the protesting, but that's okay.